Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 25. Warren Gatland has announced his team to take on the All Blacks on Saturday with 3 call-ups, 2 changes and 1 huge error. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. It's episode 25 and we've decided that the decisions to select the team that Warren has selected for the second test require an episode all to themselves. So it's going to be short and sweet, probably a little bit like his remaining Lions career. I'm here with Dan to discuss this. Dan, what do you think, mate?
Morning, mate. So in the week, Steve Hansen said specifically about comments from Warren Gatland that he's getting desperate. Everything he's doing at the moment reeks of desperation. I happen to agree. I don't dislike the team. Let's just get this out of the way. I think Alun Wyn Jones is playing is ridiculous. I think he's the 5th best second row on the tour.
So
for him to start,
100% agree.
If I'm Henderson, I'm a little bit annoyed. Let's just very quickly play the devil's advocate here and say, yes, he played badly last time. In theory, that's because he was injured. So you let it go. But even you take that away, the other matches, I still put Henderson and Cruz above him.
Yeah, I'm not going to play devil's advocate on this occasion. I've done it in the past, but I'm afraid I can't bring myself to do it with this one. I think, if you're Ian Henderson, you're disappointed. If you're Courtney Laws, you're disappointed to be on the bench rather than starting. If you're George Cruz, you're disappointed. I mean, frankly, if you're Joe Launchbury, you're disappointed. If you're either one of the Gray brothers, you're disappointed. And if you're Bob, who plays for Old Ashtonians, you're a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
That may be a slight exaggeration, but I just, look, the Lions shirt is about pride. It's about earning the right to be allowed to put that shirt on through form, through being the best player in that position. Whether that represents the best team, it has to be, because it's an invitation side, it has to be about earning the right to be given the shirt. And I'm sorry, but this just makes a mockery of what the Lions is all about when you don't pick the best players, or even come close. And like you said, he's the 5th best player on tour. I wouldn't even have him in top 5 locks that were available for selection. So really disappointed in that one. However, I think there are other elements of the team that he's selected that are interesting.
Yeah, it's good. The problem is, I must admit, I've lost faith in actually the whole coaching team of the Lions. I mean, we don't know how much Gatland dictates or how much it truly is a sort of democracy amongst that sort of coaching team. But so you were saying the other part. So the Sexton Farrell combination, I actually think is quite interesting. I'll be interested to see how that goes. And I'm not anti that at all. But, they haven't tried it. He seemed so anti it to start with. He refused to play that combination other than when it was needed because of an injury in a match. Didn't try it out since. And now in your must-win second test, you're going with it. Which, like I say, I'm not anti because they're 2 brilliant players. But I just don't have faith that he knows what he's doing.
It's very unfortunate for Ben Teo. I think he will be a massive impact off the bench. However, he dealt with the All Blacks. He dealt specifically with Sonny Bill Williams in a really well. He made a couple of errors. On one occasion there was potentially a try on the outside. He went in and he slipped, which never helps when you make a decision not to go to the overlap. He'd probably want to take that one back. But he put in some phenomenal tackles, he made some phenomenal breaks, and he definitely earned the right to be playing. And I think he's really unfortunate to miss out. And I suspect Sonny Bill Williams is probably relishing the chance to be running at Owen Farrell, as good as he is in defence, rather than Ben Teo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have every faith in Farrell's defence, but Gatland has said that we lost it physically, which is true. New Zealand did physically outplay us. So to then take off who was your most physical player, it doesn't seem to add up. I mean, like I say, I actually think this could be quite an interesting combination. I think they're going to play some rugby. Jonathan Davies showed that he can take them apart. Our back three showed they can make those breaks. So having Farrell and Sexton there, I actually think, like you said, I actually think it's quite a good call. And I think Tio, yes, is unlucky, but will come on and will make a real impact.
Yeah.
As you said,
the bench definitely looks like an impact bench now.
Yeah.
I think last week the biggest problem for me was that, when you looked at what could happen at sort of 60, 65 minutes in order to change the game, there were no real game changers in there. I mean, Carl Sinclair, I think, is probably one, but certainly in the backs.
Certainly not in the backs, yeah.
Whereas I think now it has the look of a team that, depending on what's going on, could come in and really change the momentum of the game. And that's obviously quite an important thing. But just before we kind of move on to them, your thoughts? So Peter O'Mahony was the Irish hero that captained the Lions in their first test. He was the big call that everyone was so excited about. He's obviously been dropped from not just the 15, but the 23 as well. Warburton moving into the 15 and CJ Stander moving up into the 23. So he's on the bench. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'm not unhappy with that. I don't think Amani's done anything wrong, but I understand why Warburton's starting. I think I probably would have started him myself. And I think CJ Stander probably adds, like if we're talking about this, we keep using this word impact, but it's true. And CJ Stander, I think, adds a bit more than Omani. So I think he's a little unlucky, but I don't disagree with it, actually. I think that's a change I quite like the look of, and I fully understand why that's been made.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, obviously, defence and how important aggression is. Is Laws on the bench a bit of a waste?
Well, it is if you're playing Alun Wyn Jones, yeah.
I mean, so let's look at outside of that and just look at him purely on a selection, from a selection point of view. Do you need a Courtney Laws in there from the start, or do you think he'll be able to do a pretty useful job in the last sort of 20-25?
Yeah, I can see sort of, so on the bench, if for example, say it was a Toje Cruz playing, and then you've got Laws, I think so, because to have somebody come on who is going to keep smashing them back at 6'5", I think sort of lists the team, makes life difficult for the All Blacks. So, although I see the argument for him starting, I think there's still room on the bench, and that kind of makes sense to me. As it is at the moment, I probably would have had Laws starting. I probably would have gone a Toje Laws to start with. Probably Henderson on the bench, actually.
Yeah, I think Henderson at the right. He's got to be really disappointed. But yeah, I'd have been happy with Henderson or Cruz, but definitely Alun Wyn needs to take a little walk. But that's obviously not going to happen, and hopefully not. Hopefully, it won't be too late when Warren Gatland realises that.
If we win this match from this team, I think it's luck rather than tactical nous from the coaching. Not luck because they're good players. I think they won because the players are good. I don't think it's tactical nous from the coaching team. I don't think they've tactically played it well a whole tour, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. Looking at the team, I mean, look, as you say, they're great players. The only person in there that I feel really strongly doesn't add anything and potentially is a real weakness is Alun Wyn Jones, based on his current form. Current form, as we keep saying, is all you have to go on with the Lions tour. You can't rely on past form and past performances. He's got it right in where George North is concerned, because the guy was epic in 2013. He hasn't been on form, therefore he's not been selected. Fair play. But I don't get this Alun Wyn Jones thing. I know we're Warren bashing, but I think rightly so. It feels a little bit like he's kind of gone, this tour's over in a couple of weeks. I've got to get back to Wales, where I'm the head coach for at least another couple of years. Want to make sure I keep my boys sweet. And he's slotted a few extras in just so that he makes them happy. And I don't know, it's bizarre because Warren Gatland on this tour has kind of, he's run hot and cold. He's reacted to the media on some things. He's ignored them on other things. That whole thing that you heard on that other podcast about how he had a deal with the Welsh RFU or the Welsh Rugby Union or wherever they are. It definitely feels a little bit like that could well be true. I'm sure it's not, and I'm not saying that we have any kind of a scoop, but it just feels like the decisions are being made for the wrong reasons, and it just, as we keep saying, it devalues the Lions concept.
Yeah, he's like exactly that. Like when he took out those players, he must have known the reaction you'd get. I mean, it'd be so naive not to. And then he turns around and says, "I didn't play them because people were upset. I brought them out." I'm like, "What? Like you've done it now. At least use it."
Yeah, back yourself.
Yeah, but then, like you say, there's times where he's like, "I don't care what people say. I've come here to win tests," and there's other times he's like, "Well, people are annoyed, so I'm not doing it." I am worried that he's lost. I think he's lost the plot a bit with this Lions tour. Look, Gatland is a good coach, and he's done good things with Wales, with sort of teams he's been at before. He has done good things, but this Lions thing, I think, has been a bit of a farce. Luckily, I think we've got good enough players so we can still, we're not out of this. We still have the potential to win this test, to win the series. But I think he's made life harder than easier for us.
Okay. Obviously, on a positive, Jack Nowell is in the 23. He's on the bench for Lee Halfpenny, which I think is a great call. I think Jack Nowell offers, he's not there as fullback cover, obviously, although I'm sure he can step in if needed. But in the event that Williams gets injured, I would think Watson moves to fullback, Nowell on the wing. But I think that's a good call. I think Lee Halfpenny just again form just not there, and you can't select guys, particularly I think on the bench as those sort of impact players to come on towards the end. You can't select guys that are there because they're a bit safe and they can he can catch the ball and he can kick it back.
Yeah,
he doesn't have a counter attack. He hasn't scored in God knows how long. What is it exactly that he offers that other guys can't offer and more? So I think that's the right call, and I'm really happy for Jack that he's got the call up. I think that's great for him. It's great for English rugby. I think England, for me, England rugby is looking really quite exciting at the moment. We saw them go out to Argentina and obviously do the double, but you look at some of the guys who, not necessarily fringe players, but Ben Teo is the prime example. He really was a fringe player for England. He's come out here and he's gone, hey, Eddie Jones perhaps slightly overlooked this one because when I get back to England, that's my shirt, and it's going to be some big decisions for Eddie Jones. Whether to
that's
Farrell inside and play Teo at 12, where he seems to have done so well here, or whether to push Teo out to 13 and stick with his current plan, but then you lose JJ. Some big decisions to be made by Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I think he'll stick with Ford Farrell at 10-12 and then in the centres. But, if you've got Teo on the bench, that's great. Having Teo around the team's great. He's had a brilliant tour. He had a good test match. It's unlucky that he's on the bench, but that is a tactical decision. That's absolutely no reflection on him or the way he's played. That is purely a sort of decision about sort of the way they want to play and, what impact he can add. So, well done, Teo. I agree. Jack Nowell just adds that bit of excitement that Lee Halfpenny didn't. I was watching a clip the other day of the 2013, and I think you're spot on. Like, Lee Halfpenny was making breaks in those things. I haven't seen him do that. So, yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he should be on the bench. I think that's the right call. It looks, overall, I mean, the Alun Wyn thing, I think, has sort of clouded judgment a bit because we both found that really annoying. It's almost like, well, I've dropped a few Welsh people, so I'm allowed one.
Yeah.
It's like a dad picking his kids for the Sunday morning rugby team. Where every other parent knows that their kids aren't the best player, but the dad's the coach, so his kids play.
You remember that, do you?
I remember watching your dad coach. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I agree with you. It just doesn't feel quite right. It doesn't sit right with me. But you're right. The Alun Wyn Jones thing has kind of overshadowed the rest of the team selections, which actually are not as bad. So we're going to come on to that in just a moment. Just before we do get on to sort of predictions and projections and what have you, I just want to ask you. So I know that there's been a lot of chat about how the Lions and the home nation supporters, they like to moan about things and they're always complaining. And obviously we've talked about a couple of the supposed, the foul play, the targeting Conor Murray's leg and all these other things. But I actually See, and I was, on Twitter, I was vehemently defending the All Blacks, actually, saying, this is rugby, it's a physical game, blah, blah, blah. But over the course of the last few days, I've been following various people on Twitter, and people have been kind of grabbing these little snapshots from the various games and posting them on Twitter. And I must have looked at about 9 different videos of incidents that were just outrageous. A swinging arm to a player who's got nothing, who's on his way out of the ruck for no other reason than why not? In front of the ref, not called. Offsides, forward passes, cheap shots. Just, I don't know, there seems to be, I know that the All Blacks are notorious for playing on the edge, but I'm a little bit confused about what the edge actually is, because looking at these clips, it looks like they're notorious for playing way over the edge, but somehow they've managed to brainwash the referees into going, they're the All Blacks, they play on the edge, it's probably fine. Yeah,
it's a tricky one, because I think, so one thing, I haven't seen these, I must admit. One thing, I think sometimes it's easy to get clips out, and I haven't seen these clips, it's not really right for me to comment, but sometimes it's easy to get these clips out of content over 18 minutes. You can tend to find things that look a bit dodgy, but I do think, don't get me wrong, I don't think the ref was biased towards the All Blacks last week, but I do think he missed, like you say, there were quite a few incidents where you're like, oh, come on. I don't think that'll happen this time, because I think enough's been made of it, but the ref's going to be a lot more aware. I don't think the All Blacks target players like that. I think they're just a very physical team, and maybe sometimes that overspills beyond, like you say, beyond what that line is. But I definitely don't think they go out to hurt people. They don't need to, as much as anything.
Fair enough. Guys, definitely go on Twitter, check it out, at England Rugby Pod. You can also now check out Dan's profile, because he's on there. I think you're at DC Woodo. So
I've not even looked at it yet. Thanks for setting that up for me.
No problem. He's now part of the Twitterati. So yeah, get on there, join the debate.
Is that what it's called? Oh my god!
Join the debate and have a look, because some of these videos I've retweeted a few of them as the England Rugby Pod, and it's interesting. It's interesting to see. I watching them, it's very difficult to say, well, that's out of context, because they're pretty. They're pretty outrageous. They're pretty outrageous, pretty conclusive.
Fair enough.
Clearing someone out by going in with your forearm first straight into the player's head, and then going, "But what, ref? I was trying to get him out of the way." But yeah, so go on, have a look, check it out for yourselves, and obviously go and say hello to Dan. He needs to get a few followers, but that'd be good. But yeah, okay. So the big question, Dan, I think is, can the Lions win this game?
Yeah, definitely. They definitely can win it. Are they favourites? No, I don't think so. But they can win it. They're good enough players. They're good enough team. We've seen we can cause the All Blacks upset.
And of course, they have to win it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. They need to. I think they'll take a really physical game to them, with Alun Wyn standing on the side and watching the rest get stuck in. But yeah, I think we can win. It feels more. It just. Every time there's just always something that isn't quite right, and it's starting to piss me off, really. Like, a Lions saw you doing that, and Gatland just seems to do something that just doesn't add up every single time. Yeah. And I think it overshadows sort of the rest of the rest of the guys who have gone on and really had a brilliant tour, the likes of Tio. The likes of Sinclair, who actually, like, we've got to bear in mind, this guy was, a young guy, kind of almost in the England squad from an experience perspective. Now he's one of the most sort of valuable Lions. So,
there's been a lot of guys have definitely been given a platform, I think, to go back to their various nations and say, right, I need to be a key part of this setup now. And I think that's great, and that's one of the real positives to come out of, I guess, any Lions tour. But from an England point of view, certainly this one, and I'm sure there are other nations that would feel the same way about some of their guys. But no, you're right. Certain decisions have overshadowed things, but I guess the key thing is that when push comes to shove, it's a team that can do it. I agree as well. They have to do it, as we said, and of course we'll find out on Saturday if they can. We'll be back at half time. We're not going to do a pre-game kind of warm-up this time. We're going to come straight in at half-time with an analysis of the first half. Hopefully it's going to be positive. Hopefully there's going to be a score differential in our favour. And of course we'll follow that up with our full-time report as usual. And hopefully we're going to be celebrating a Lions win and looking forward to a massive Test Series finale the following weekend. So we will see you all then. Of course, as always, please rate us and review us. It's key to getting found by more and more people, and that's what we're out to do. We want to just spread the word, spread the love. So yeah, that's on iTunes. Also check us out on our various social media profiles at England Rugby Pod, and you can check out the website www.englandrugbypod.com.
Excellent. Let's be positive. Let's look forward to it. Big match that day, and I can't wait.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Cheers.